I gotta be honest with you. I don't know who this black announcer Showtime dude is. You know, he's been around for about, I would say maybe about a year or so now. If not a year, a little under a year. The guy that does the weigh-ins when you watch the Showtime stream, or the guy that does the Showtime Boxing Special Edition or Showbox. Well, during the Leo Santa Cruz versus Jesus Ruiz weigh-in, both weighed in 122 pounds for the 122-pound limit, WBC 122-pound title. So, Abner Maris, after the weigh-in, Abner Maris was asked, who would you like to fight next? Abner Maris says Maris and then Rigondeaux, but he said Maris and then Rigo a little lower. But then the Showtime announcer dude who's supposed to give us the news, basically, and provide us with, you know, even if you only just get one question, you know, provide us with some information that would appease the fans, even though you know it's not necessarily even though you know it's not necessarily a situation where, you want to promote another fighter off of another network or whatever the case may be, even though Rigo don't got no network. But long story short, he said, okay, you hear, he said he wants to fight Abner Maris. Abner Maris, and he didn't say Rigondeaux's name at all. And I'm thinking to myself, did he do that on purpose? Is that Showtime telling him to do that? And I'm thinking, like, where did they get this square? You know, you got to get somebody with a little grit, because from my understanding, fans are not really feeling it. And Rigondeaux, let's talk about Rigondeaux. Now, listen. Understand that it wasn't in his hands. Even Oscar De La Hoya. Now, this is... look, Leo Santa Cruz is a Golden Boy fighter advised by Al Haymon. So basically, even though Al Haymon fighters have gone, I would say maybe, let's say 95% of Al Haymon fighters won't be fighting on Golden Boy cards anymore. Now, for the less than 10 that remain, they are still advised by Al Haymon. So Al Haymon can say, well, you know, I advise you not to fight this person. I advise you not to fight that person, even though Golden Boy may want it. So Haymon still has a bit of his claws in Golden Boy Promotions, but they need those fighters. You know, meaning Deontay Wilder and Leo Santa Cruz, who's headlining these cards. So Leo Santa Cruz has been protected. That's how the fans feel. That's how it looks. Because when you look at the quality of opposition and where they're getting these guys from, and when you look at the guys that he can be fighting that's not in the politics, you ask yourself, well, what the F is going on? Fuck. What's going on? I am T-Street Controversy with RealCombatMedia.com. T-Street Controversy Live, your #1 boxing reporter, fastest growing on YouTube, period, bar none. I cover every single major fight live, weigh-ins. I go to weigh-ins, predictions, news, rumors, you know, everything. So I'm going to be covering this fight live, Leo Santa Cruz versus Jesus Ruiz, and then Deontay Wilder versus my man Stiverne. And then after, about an hour or so after, I'm going to do something called Google Hangout, which is a live streaming video chat where we're going to be talking to each other, talking about the event, talking about news. You know, the link is right available. So all you got to do is basically subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and then what you do is go to my page, scroll down, hit where it says, you know, the T-Street Controversy Live, hit that, scroll down, and you'll see where it says Wilder versus Stiverne live discussion post-fight results. That's going to be airing at about, I'll start at about maybe 2:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so it's going to be pretty early, you know, for a lot of people. But moving on, when you look at the 122-pound division, and we're not going to talk about 126, we're not going to talk about Nicholas Walters, we're not going to talk about Vasil Lomachenko. We're going to leave those guys out, and let's talk about the 122-pound division. You got Guillermo Rigondeaux, you got Carl Frampton, and you got Scott Quigg. But really, the other champions basically are really Rigondeaux, who's the WBO, WBA Super World, and then Carl Frampton, who is the IBF. Scott Quigg has the WBA World Champion. Basically, he doesn't have the. Basically, he's got the second WBA belt, and they have two belts. For example, Floyd Mayweather at 154 is the WBC 154-pound champion and WBA Super World 154-pound champion. Even though fans respect Erislandy Lars, WBA regular champion. You see, so it's a confusing situation. But basically, when you look at the fights that are available out there, and when you look at the fact that Carl Frampton wants him, and you know, when you look at the fact that wants him and Rigondeaux, and when you look at the fact that Scott Quigg wants him and Rigondeaux, and if I'm correct, the Scott Quigg fight was offered to him and he turned it down. So when you look at the fact that you turned on Scott Quigg, I understand Scott Quigg, you know, whatever. But look at the guys you're fighting. At least Scott Quigg is getting airtime over where he's at. You know, I'm not saying those guys are not getting airtime, but it's like the point I'm trying to make is he shouldn't be fighting these guys. Now, I'm going to clown the shit out of Leo Santa Cruz if Carl Frampton fights Guillermo Rigondeaux before Leo Santa Cruz does, because Carl Frampton wants to fight Rigondeaux, even though but everybody knows that you got a good chance to losing to Rigondeaux and the money's not necessarily there. But if you're a fighter and you want the fans to be on your side, win or loss, you got to fight people like that. That's why fans are always going to follow guys like Mauricio Herrera and Gabriel Rosado. That's why Emmanuel Augustus was always followed by the fans, you know, despite all the losses, you know, and DeMarcus Corley, you know. So when you look at when you look at like who has the best chance to defeat Rigo, let's talk about Rigo because he's the top of the division. I personally think, you know, and I'm talking about the champions, I personally think Carl Frampton. That's just my own personal opinion. But when it comes to Leo Santa Cruz, if Leo Santa Cruz was going to try to beat Rigondeaux, he's got to use his height and he's got to try to crowd the shit out of Rigondeaux's face. But then when the guy that Rigondeaux fought, you know, Hisashi Yamagasa, the guy that Rigondeaux fought in Japan, you know, on December was an exciting fight, but he kept trying to crowd Rigondeaux's space, and he was 6'2", damn. And no, he was 5'11", damn near 6 feet. So I guess I'm talking a little fast. I didn't want to like do a 10-minute video, but I guess I'm saying is this: listen, this fight is just basically for nothing, you know. So when you look at the landscape, you have Johnny Gonzalez, who may be taking on who's supposed to be taking on Gary Russell Jr. And then listen to this. The winner of that is supposed to be taking on maybe Abner Maris. You know, I'm saying maybe because it all depends on who loses or not and if these guys don't lose. And then Leo Santa Cruz later on this year on NBC. Now, if Leo Santa Cruz keeps winning, he'll fight 3 times this year, and then he'll fight on NBC, you know, or on the undercard of Mayweather's next fight again. Basically, the September Mayweather fight. He's supposed to be fighting on the undercard against either Abner Maris, Johnny Gonzalez, Gary Russell, Gary Russell, and it's one more name I'm missing. One more name. Anyway, you'll be hearing about it more, you know, as the months go on. But once again, this is all pending these fights. If these fighters don't get defeated and things like that. I'm T Street Controversy. T Street Controversy on Facebook. T Street Controversy on Twitter. T Street Controversy on Instagram. T Street Controversy on Vine. T Street Controversy on Tumblr. T Street Controversy on Pinterest. Yes, yes, on all of them. T Street Controversy. T Street Controversy Live.